Hello, welcome to this new recording. And today we're going to be looking at 7.1.2, that is understanding how to declare the language of HTML document. Why on earth is this topic important? Now, it is very important that we identify the language of the content of our web page at the beginning, right? This will automatically do a number of things. For example, it could change the look and behavior of your page, to extracting information, to changing the way that an application works. Some language applications basically work at the level of the document as a whole, while others work on the appropriate label document fragments. So the bottom line here is that it is best to add language information to your content now in order to be able to reap the benefits when new developments arise. It is simply to do when it's actually simpler to do when creating your content rather than fixing it later on. So that is why at this early stage of our learning, we want to understand how to structure your page in a decent manner, so you won't have headache later on as time goes on. Right. So let's take a look at the actual content of this training. Now, always use a language attribute at the HTML tag to declare the default language of the text in the page. In other words, if for instance you want your language to be interpreted in English, by default you want to add English, the English code somewhere there. Okay, so you're gonna say body and body space equal to, then you put in a quote language, and you specify the language that you want to have there. So whatever you put at this part of the page automatically means that whatever you are writing is going to be declared in English. So it's going to use the English format on the internet. Okay, so that's what it basically means. So note that you should use the HTML elements, this one here, rather than the body element. Sorry, I was taking this. You're actually supposed to put that in the HTML element, not the body element. This is because in the HTML element, the HTML element contains some other tags that are outside, or rather that's outside the body tag. Okay, for instance, you have the head, and inside the head, you have some other things in it. Okay, and it's usually outside of the body tag. So it's best to put the language within the HTML, not the body, like I said previously. Okay, right. So let's move on to the next page, and so you can see an example of what I'm talking about. So selecting the right attribute. If you can still remember, in lessons back, we've talked about attributes. You're basically trying to specify what your HTML element should be or should look like. That's the attribute. Okay, so now if your document is HTML, okay, i.e. served as text as HTML, and your default language is French, for instance, you to set the default language to be French using lang attributes. Okay, so you see this is our HTML elements, you see, which is the tag there. So this is the attribute, that's why I colored it red so you can see that, and that is the value. So most things, even in programming, most tags, all right, will usually would have the element, which is this, the attribute, and the value. So it's elements, attributes, and value, EAV, if that will help you to remember. So element, attribute, and value. So that's the element, HTML, attribute, and the value. So basically what we're trying to say here now is that if, for instance, this whatever we're writing is going to be written in French, so you want to specify it, and I'm going to explain to you why you need to specify the language subsequently. Okay, so you put it there. Then when saving XHTML, okay, remember here it's just HTML, and I did mention XHTML the previous class we had, XHTML. Right, so there are different standards of HTML, different types of HTML. And I did say we're going to be doing the HTML5, which, that one there, right? But XHTML is different, okay? It's stricter. For instance, with HTML, there are some times when you don't even close the tags. Maybe you omit that. It could still work with some browsers, right? But you dare not try that with XHTML. You must get all the tags spot on. You must get your codes. They just have to be on point. Otherwise, your page will not run. Okay, so that's XHTML. So now, if for instance that is the type of HTML you're using, okay, how do you declare the language? Okay, so how do you do that? It says when serving XHTML 1.x as a text to HTML, use both. So you are using two things. Here you're using only one because it's HTML you're using. But if it's XHTML you're using, you're going to specify the language attributes, okay, right? And you're also going to specify this SML language attribute as well, all right? And together, every time you have to set the language, okay? So HTML, just that, XHTML, you have to put. So that's an example of what I'm talking about here. So XML language attribute is the standard way to identify language information in XML. I actually have a note on what XML is, and in the last two, you don't really have to know it, but I just put it there in case you're curious about what XML is. All right, so basically, imagine you want to do this one here. You want to, we are trying to apply language on XHTML codes. Here is what you do. That is the HTML element there. Remember here you said you have to specify both, and you have the language, which is France or French FR, and you now have to specify XML language, which is France as well, because you are using XHTML. All right. Then when serving XML alone, okay, this is another one. You do not need the language attribute. You only use this. All right. So 3 things here. XML, you only use this. HTML, you only use that. XHTML, you use both. That's the difference. Okay. All right. So like I said, XML, I will just briefly talk about it in this presentation. All right, I hope that is clear. Now, one big question here. What if element content and attribute value are in different languages? Okay. What if element content and attribute values are in different languages? Say for instance, you've declared you're going to have more than one language in your documents. Maybe one section of your documents you're going to have French. You're going to write that in French, and maybe one part you're going to write it in English. Okay, or most of the pages will be English, so that means you want to make the default English, which is this one, for instance. Okay, when you put it inside the HTML tag, you're specifying that this is the default language, which is English. All right, but if you want to change your content into Spanish in another language, okay, within the same document, then you now have to write it in this format. You have to introduce what we call the span. We haven't later on we're going to talk about all this, but just take it as it is now. So you have to write it within the span elements, okay? Span elements, and that is the attribute, which is title, and you now say Spanish, okay? You write that. Then before you now specify the language, because you're actually linking it. This is just something that you're linking, and this is the text there. So you say a language is equal to Espanol. That's, this is the code for it. There's actually a link that you can actually extract the code of the different languages. It is actually in the next couple of pages coming. Okay, so a language is equal to a. So take note of this, because you're going to be using this in your and the third day of coding. Okay, so take note of this because you're going to be imbibing different language in your text. So it's important to learn this code. So the span title is equal to Spanish. You could just put that there. Spanish, if for instance it's Spanish you're meant to write in, or Arabic or whatever, you put that there. Then you now declare whatever language you want to put in there, which is in this case, this is a language equal to es href language declaration.es, then Espanol, that closes. Okay, so please take note, this is a link. In your assignment, you're not supposed to put a link. Okay, so you don't have to put a link. It's just a text, could be a paragraph P that you put here. Okay, so this example is different because this is just trying to create a link here. But here in your own, you could just put a paragraph or H1 or whatever you want to put if it's heading, but it's a different element you're using there. All right, and that's the end of it. Okay, I hope this is clear enough. So basically what we just did here is that we're using 2 languages in a page. So you could even do, I think in your assignments you have 3 languages. You have English, you have I think Irish, I think German or something like that, or French, not too sure, but something like that. So you have several languages there. So make sure the default language is in English. Then in between, you have to introduce the span title. Then before you now type what you want to put. Remember, you want to make this a paragraph, not a link. Okay, how do you put stuff? How do you put an attribute in a paragraph? Okay, P, whatever language, then you put the text that you want to have appear. All right. Okay, so let's go to the next page and see what we get there. Okay, so what if there is no element to hang your attribute on? There is no element to hang your attribute on. So that is what I just explained. You see, the previous example was we are hanging your attribute on a link. You know, it's going to a link. So this is just exactly what you're going to be doing in your assignment. This one here, there's no link. So that means a paragraph. Okay, so for instance, now this is English. The default page for this page, for instance, would have been English. So you see, you'd see that in Chinese, as remember, see, you introduce a span, okay, then a language, H. This is the conversion. That is the code. That's the code, and I'm sure going to show you. This is where you get all the codes here. That's this link here. Okay, so just type in this link and you get all the codes. So this is the code here. COD, language code. Okay, it's called the language code. Okay, so the language code for Chinese is this, and it's now written in Chinese. Then you close the span and close this. So that's what you need to do when you are changing from English to another language. Okay, it has to be written in that language. In your assignment, the language is actually there, but you just need to enclose them in there. All right, so that's about that. And then, okay, so why is this useful? Why do we need to put our language in a different, why do we need to enclose a different language in a specific tag? Okay, the reason why we do that, number one, is because a screen reader may use it for an appropriate pronunciation. If you put that in a special, if you do not put it in a tag and you just type it that way, your screen reader could get confused. But when you specify the language, it will invoke all the properties, you know, all the things that it requires to interpret that language in the correct format. So that is why it's important. So screen readers will do their work well. Then the browser may use it to use using syllabification for syllabus purpose. Okay, you want to maybe translate something, you want to translate a language to English or whatever, so the browser will help in doing that. All right, once they see that tag, they'll know, oh, this has to be converted to that language. So a search engine may use it to find relevant content. Search engine, of course, for instance, yeah, maybe you are in France or you are in Germany and you know it's for a specific language. Once they see that EN or FR, they will know this is exactly what you're looking for. So it kind of sieves it. It helps to narrow down the search for specific purpose. So a webmaster may use it to style content accordingly, e.g. use the correct quotation marks for the key elements with CSS quotes. Okay, so that's about the use of it. Okay, so it's very important. Remember, we are trying to design to meet the correct standard. Okay. Now, here is your hash day 3 coding. There's a lot of skills. It doesn't look beautiful here now, but the fact is here is that you're going to be using a lot of skills. I want your assignment, okay? Here's what you're going to do. You want to make sure you use, obviously this is heading 1, so you're going to be using the heading tag, H1. I'm just telling you what that is. But you have to give it that color. So you want to be know how to apply color codes to it. And that's heading 2, heading 3 with green color, and so on and so on. And this is purple, all right? And this is another heading, but see, this is in French, okay? This is in French, so how do you change it to France? French, right? Okay, so this means good morning, but you just type that. This means good morning, my dear, in French. That's what that means. To say good afternoon in Irish here, it's how to say, so that's Irish. So you want to put a tag around this, okay? And how about German? Quite easy. It is this. So this is German. You want to put a tag around that too, okay? Then of course you want to type this as well. This is a line break. Remember the break? Break, how do you break? Look for the code to help you out with break. And of course, ordered list. Remember we did listing? Was it in HT2? How do you list? Ordered list. Ordered list. Number 1, 2, 3. Then this is unordered list. So just to give you a tip, ordered list, usually you start it with OL, which represent ordered list. Then before you now go with your LI, your individual LIs. Then here, this is an unordered list. Unordered list basically means it's not ordered, so anything can come first. So that's use unordered list, UL. Okay, right, and the individual LIs. Then of course, this text is bold. Make sure this text, write it in bold, then close it in bold. Remember the tag to make your text bold, and this is italic, remember, and the tag. So I just want you guys to understand formatting very well. This, you know how to insert your image basically now. I want to believe so. All right, so that's it for now. But just to quickly show you that if you want to get a better understanding of what XML is, so I have it on this page. I'm not going to teach it, and just go through it to get a good understanding of it. Okay, so thank you for your time. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.